Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast team.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Hey, Jamie.
Great start.
Great start. Teamwork. Congratulations on your Oscar nomination for your work on the film A Different Man.
All right. Thank you so much. It's a trip.
And the work being considered for the film is Prosthetics and Hairstyling for the character Edward, portrayed by Sebastian Stan. Now, if you could each tell us your name and what your position on the film was.
Crystal, why don't you start?
I'm Crystal Jurado. I am a prosthetic makeup artist.
Dave?
Yeah, well, I am David. I am a prosthetic makeup artist.
And I'm Mike Marino, and I'm the prosthetic makeup artist and designer.
Awesome. So I'd love to know, when you heard the news that you guys had been nominated, what was the first thought that came to mind? Kind of talk me through that moment.
I was super happy. I mean, this is a small film. It's an independent film. And a lot of the times these things kind of get overlooked. And it was such a crazy job that we were all really happy. I mean, I was super pumped. And Sebastian was texting me the whole time, and like 5 a.m, and we were all like, oh my God, like it's so early. Everyone. And if I have a funny story, but I'll let these guys go first. But it was great.
Yeah, same thing. I was like super shocked that it actually got picked up and noticed. I actually missed the moment when I actually reacted when I saw it, but luckily I got it on the doggy cam, so I was able to rewind that and watch it on the doggy cam. So
That's
Nice.
awesome.
I have some little spy footage of the moment.
Yeah, the doggy cam's always watching.
Yep.
Dave?
Yeah, I was shocked. Actually, I found out from a text message from a friend of mine, and he said, "Congratulations." And I said, "For what? What did I do?" He goes, and then he showed me a screenshot of the Oscar nominations. I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, and then I started, then my phone just exploded, and I was just like in shock, still in shock. It's such a an amazing thing to be recognized as a little film that we did.
Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. You're going to bust out that story, Mike?
Oh, no. Well, I was actually that day I was with John Travolta, and his assistant had asked his assistant, did Mike get nominated? And he looked through his phone and he said, nope, it didn't happen. And John told me he was so bummed. And he goes, oh man, I gotta make up a story about, it's okay. And, your work is great and all these things. And then my brother came in the room who works for John, and John explains it like my brother's tail was wagging, and he's like, what's up? He goes, Michael got nominated. And he was like, Chris, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, he's yelling at his assistant, Chris. He goes, well, he was looking at visual effects. So he didn't see my name. So it was pretty funny.
I like that he was having to plan this whole, it's okay, maybe next time, your work's great. Yeah.
John is great. He's just the greatest guy. He's so kind. He's so nice. He's a makeup artist in his own right, by the way, and hair person. He's very particular. I mean, all the years of dealing with hair and stuff. So, I mean, he could be on our side, to be honest.
I feel like a lot of actors are. If you could talk us through the character Edward, makeup and hair-wise, from research and development through to daily application, just what you guys went through to get Sebastian on screen as Edward.
The project came to me while I was already on another job, Marvelous Miss Maisel, which we had our hands full doing that job, which was a really cool, fun job. I love that show. It's just a crazy makeup and hair and costume and production design aspect. I mean, it's really, and the acting is so funny. So we were doing that job already, and Sebastian was texting me saying like, hey man, you got to read this script. I would really love if you did this. So I said, yeah, sure. So I got the script, I read the script, and I was like, this is just the trippiest, weirdest film. And I have to somehow figure out how to work on this movie. And Adam Pearson, who's in the film, who's co-starring in the movie, has the condition neurofibromatosis, where his face is, changed genetically. The job was sort of homaging and referencing that makeup in the film in this very odd comedic sense, because I thought the message of the film itself was serious. It was like, he's Edward, the character with this condition, and then he goes through an experimental surgery and he becomes what, quote unquote, normal. And then at that point, he doesn't know who the hell he is anymore. And then he meets Adam Pearson, who's this charming, amazing person that everyone loves. And he's like, shit, I want to go back to being like that. And he can't. So he like wears a mask of himself, the way he used to look. And it's just this really funny way of explaining something deeper within the time that we're living in right now, where everyone is like completely obsessed with like fixing everything. As makeup and hair people, we're doing that anyway. We're fixing and trying to perfect our work. But in a sense, no one is ever perfect. And I think that we are like, the society anyway is homogenizing into trying to be this like mannequin or something, like the same nose, the same lips, the same eyebrows, the same hair, the same everything. So it's like, the whole message of the movie is just like, you don't need that to know who you are. People will accept you for who you are, and you don't have to try to look like everyone else and be like everyone else. And I thought that was a really cool message with the film in a weird Cronenberg, Charlie Kaufman, David Lynch way, so I had to do the film. What about you guys?
Well, that was the very beginning of everything. So, I guess talk us through the design aspect of a bit, like how you got to where you got to with.
Well, design aspect of it, Adam Pearson was the inspiration. So, and I hadn't met Adam yet. So I relied on just photographs and videos I had seen. And if you look under the skin, he looks different from the way he looks now. So his condition is, I think, growing and changing and all of that. So it was a matter of like finding a current photograph of the way he looked and then changing it slightly enough to where it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different, a little bit stranger, because he goes through this process of all these scabs and all these things falling off of his face. So we kind of had to make it a little bit different, but use Adam's face as the basis for the design. And there are so many other things in it other than that first look. There's the mask that we create that he wears. There are multiple pieces of skin falling off in scabby bits and pieces. And then when he ultimately rips his face off, like Poltergeist, he underneath it is another makeup. It's another completely different design where it's like a hybrid version of Sebastian's face and Adam's face. So it's this kind of twisted face underneath. And you only see it for the scene when he's in the bathroom. And then the next time you see it, it's Sebastian as, his new character, Guy, who's himself, playing himself. So there were a few stages of all of that. And we only had, I think it was 22 days of shooting. And we had done the makeup in the morning before we went to Marvelous Miss Maisel. So he would come, and we didn't have a makeup trailer. There was like, it was next to a honey wagon, it was like the room next to the bathroom, and everyone slamming the door and everything. I'm like, this is not going to work. This is just too small, and this is totally not going to work. So I had done the makeup. We all did the makeup in my apartment in New York City in the morning, because that was like the easiest, because Sebastian didn't live too far away. I said, why don't you just come to my studio at home, because I have a whole setup there. I said, let's do the makeup there, and then you could go to set from there as opposed to doing it the other way around. So we all agreed that was the best idea. So, but there were days where we would have to do the makeup at like 3 a.m. And then he had a few hours alone to walk around in New York City. And because they weren't ready for him. So that was something he said was great for him, because he was actually able to live with this condition in New York, go on subways, go to stores. And he really got a sense of what it's like to be that way and have the compassion for what people like that have to go through. And it was very helpful for his performance and to understand Adam and the whole tone of the film that way. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah.
And Crystal and Dave, were you there for testing and things before starting to shoot, or?
Yeah. I also work at the shop with Mike, so I was around a lot while he was designing it, and the whole molding process and all those things I was there for. So yeah. He's around for all of it.
Yeah, and I think Crystal was on Maisel with me. Dave, well, you weren't on Maisel, were you?
No, I did a couple of days on Maisel, but
Yeah, right. So you had something going on. We had something going on. So Crystal would come with me to Maisel, and then Dave would stay, and then there would be days we'd alternate, sort of, who gets to go and all of those things. But it was quite a feat, even being able to do the job, which was really important for me because The Elephant Man was the first film I ever saw, and that was really what drove me into doing makeup. So The Elephant Man had the same condition that Adam Pearson has, which was neurofibromatosis. So it was like a full circle type thing, that I got to be able to do this New York indie version of, a comedic Elephant Man, so I had to make that happen.
That's awesome. So it was all three of you applying in the mornings?
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'd really jump around a lot because, 3 people on 1 person is kind of intense. So you kind of have to know when to back out and do something on the side that'll serve the makeup better going forward. So sometimes, Mike would be pre-painting and Dave and I would be prepping, Sebastian's face and skin. And then, we'd go to the part where we're flattening the hair and somebody might step off and cut some stencils for some offset pieces or glue on the little neck tumors or whatever have you. So there was a lot of doing a dance and feeling out when to come and when to go, when to step in, when it needs to be all hands on deck, because, once it gets to the part of putting the face on, there's a lot of weight and it's very soft. So it's very, very easy to distort it, stretch it, and no longer fits, or you lose all the texture detail if it stretches too much. So there really is some key moments that you have to really be at the ready and supporting that makeup as it's going on so it goes in the right place and doesn't get turned into a piece of bubble gum.
Yeah, the other thing too is we didn't have a makeup chair with a headrest.
Right.
I mean, we did this in a director's chair. So he had, head back just a little just so we can get it on. And then we had to get in a certain spot. Once it was glued down, then we moved him back. It was and we had to do it fast too. So we didn't have a lot of time and set didn't have a lot of time to, wait around. But most of the time we did this early in the morning and had it done. I think we got that thing down to under an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was fast. Like to get all that done in that time period.
Right. Yeah. And then there were the days where we had made the transformation sequence where he peels his face off. I mean, that was like an entire different thing. I mean, an entire different material, and it was barely gelled, so that when we had done a makeup where he's in this transitionary stage and then having to figure out how to glue the main makeup on over it, and then hopefully he gets it right when he peels it off. And that was barely gelled. So it was like we tacked it on with, I think it was like methacellulose and like KY jelly or something, and we just kind of ripped it off. He ripped it off on camera as a one shot because it was barely, we had to lean it back and like stick this thing on and then go, okay, ready, camera's ready, okay, go. And then he peels the thing off because it's just continuously dripping.
If memory serves me correct, I think he also shot in the regular makeup before that day. And then we had to take that makeup off.
All right.
And then reapply the new extra stretchy makeup in a very short amount of time. It was pretty crazy.
Totally.
Yeah, we do that other makeup underneath too.
Yeah.
So
It's like 3 makeups.
Then
I'm partly to blame for that. I mean, I'm partly to blame. I thought it was a cool idea to do another makeup. And then Sebastian was like, yeah, that's way better, so because it's like, you're peeling this thing off and then you're completely, himself. It didn't make sense to me because it starts as sort of a progression of this like flaking skin and scabs and stuff. So it's like, it made sense that it kind of cocooned and then he was a different form for at least a day or whatever the time frame is in between. And then he gets that stuff, you assume kind of is removed from his face.
And what was your maintenance like throughout your shooting days?
Dave, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually, the maintenance wasn't too bad. A lot of it, I mean, the big thing is it was sweat. So, I mean, we shot this in summer and it was hot and he was fully clothed. So it wasn't like, he was wearing a t-shirt and stuff. So And there was no air conditioning on set either.
Yeah.
So
course.
like this thing, and it was brutal. They had
Yeah, and
fans.
we were mostly in like apartments, like
Yeah,
in
we
the
were in, like-
deepest like Brooklyn or Harlem apartments
Yeah.
with like, you know, pre-war buildings that have no
Mhm.
air conditioning and like abandoned apartments and stuff. Like,
and the smallest elevator you ever seen. It
oh
was like
yeah,
1 meter. The
depth
whole
trap.
crew had to go up and down, and of course they had to shoot on like the 5th floor.
Yeah, it'd take like 20 minutes to get
Yeah.
up. an
And we had to
elevator.
leave all our stuff up there and then set up. That was probably the that was the thing. Like, oh my god! After like you're shooting like 12 hours, and then you have an hour and a half makeup, another hour removal, and then an hour of prep each day. Of like, it was just a long day. And then it was like,
Yeah, it was really shoestring. I mean, that budget was small, and like, you know, it was almost kind of like this. It was cool to experience that because that felt like the closest thing to like Eraserhead. That, you know, that Eraserhead took. Fred Elms told me, the DP, that took 9 years to film. The Eraserhead took 9 years. So it was like he said that they would shoot like for a month or like a few weeks, and then everyone had regular jobs. And then they'd come back and do it, and like something was slightly different, and then they'd come back again, and it lasted for like 9 years.
Holy shit.
So like it felt a little bit like a David Lynch project, and Aaron Schimberg, who is like this film buff maniac, you know, is, you know, there's so many layered things in that film that he's referencing from other strange films over the years. You know, it really was like a David Lynch type project. You know, the closest thing I could get to doing that. I wasn't able to work on any of his projects, unfortunately, even though The Elephant Man is like one of my favorite movies, but it really felt like that. So it was cool to experience because, you know, we're coming from like big movies like Coming to America or Batman or something. It's like everything's available for you there. Trailers and lighting and assistants and people and just lunch, you know. It was like, you know, could you even get lunch? Like, are we allowed to get lunch? You know, it's like, you know, so it really felt like just guerrilla style filmmaking.
Yeah. That's
that was
awesome.
probably one of the best things too about it. I mean, everyone was like a family on set. It was so tight. I mean, we didn't even have monitors. It was like, there was no tap. You had to look like through the camera.
And it was shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
It wasn't digital. It wasn't anything. There were no live feeds. You know, it was like, you know, it was truly, you know, a Lynch film.
That's awesome. So each year, and this year is definitely no different, the nominated films showcase such a wonderful range of work. How do you feel your work differs from your fellow nominees this year?
Well, everybody's done such a weird, cool job. I mean, you know, I don't think it's lack of skill or anything like that. I mean, I think everybody is so adept to, you know, makeup and hair. I mean, there's such beautiful work out there. I just think it's an individual job, you know, and there were a lot of difficulties with it. It was crucial to be in the film. You couldn't make the movie without this makeup, you know. So, you know, a lot of the time you work on a project, you may or may not need that makeup, but it was really vital to the storytelling. I think there's such great work. I haven't met some of the artists nominated this year. It's not your regular bunch. I think it's people from, I don't even know where, France or Montreal or something I've never met. And just, I haven't met anyone. And I think it's cool because there's so many talented people across the globe, you know, that are doing this stuff, you know.
Yeah. You guys are the only USA team.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Miss Biles right now. You know, I'm about to win it all, right, guys?
Yeah.
Wear leotards. Wear leotards, Mike.
Please, I'm wearing them now. But I don't know. I hope that everybody has a good time. I mean, it's not really about winning, to be honest. I mean, I think it's like a cool celebration of art and the fact that, you know, in this day and age with AI and weird visual effects going on in this industry, it's cool to be working and still doing this type of work. So I'm really glad. I think these two will agree with me. I mean, it's just awesome to be nominated and recognized, especially for this New York indie film, you know. Well, I love it. I think it's great. I mean, whoever wins, wins. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Well said. Crystal, Dave, did you want to add anything, or are you?
When Mike first told me about this show, I was like, oh God, this is great. I can't wait to do this. This is going to be fun. And then he's like, oh, it tells me the budget. I'm like, I said, I don't really care. I just want to do something that when I look back at in my life and my career, I'm like, I did that show. And then it's something I can be proud of. Like, you don't get that opportunity. Most people, makeup artists, they do films and TV shows, and it's, they look back and like, what did I do all those years? And they can't really say anything. Like, I can proudly say that I was part of this film, and that's forever. It's a legacy now.
Absolutely.
So whether we win or not, it doesn't, like, to me, it's, I can tell my grandkids, and they're, yeah, grandpa was, an Oscar nominated makeup artist. Like, no one could take that away.
I think when Mike first told me about this job, I think my gut reaction is what it is for a lot of the jobs that I do with Mike, where I'm just like, I gotta see how he's gonna do this. Like, I gotta see what he's gonna do here, because I don't see how it can work, but he always makes it work, and it's always just an absolute treat to be a part of such an awesome job, such an awesome team. You just can't ask for more than that. And then to on top of that, have this opportunity to celebrate together is dream come true.
Yeah. Being recognized by your peers is pretty great.
It really is.
Totally.
So let's talk about the biggest challenge during filming. What was it?
Biggest challenge.
Getting up the steps with our gear.
Dave's going straight to cardio.
Good.
Okay.
Good job, Dave. Getting up the steps. I think honestly the biggest challenge really for me, even in designing the thing, was it's a sensitive issue. It's a sensitive thing. You're using someone's real face. Luckily, Adam Pearson is like the coolest guy you could ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
He is so funny. He's really like Oswald in the film. He's charming and happy, and he owns his skin, and he owns himself, the way he looks. Like, I could hang out with him all day, and I have, but you're paying an homage to this, and you're hoping you're not messing it up or goofing it up or something like that. And he's such a great sport. I mean, and he's such a cool person and great actor. That was the difficulty, balancing kind of the sensitivity of what this is, because hopefully people get what we're doing, and them interacting and it becoming this artistic, in a positive way. It's a positive thing. So, you might have a critic and be like, well, you're exploiting this or that, but Aaron has a condition himself, the director. Adam has worked with him before. He's saying something. He's actually making a political or social statement with the film, which it's rare that happens these days. So I think it's a question in the air, of what this movie is about. And I think that was a challenging thing to balance, the respect towards Adam Pearson's look and the people that have this condition.
Yeah, absolutely. Krista, what was your biggest challenge?
I mean, other than juggling that and Maisel at the same time, probably, honestly, the softness and the weight of the appliance itself was really tricky, because it could literally just become a whole size too big if you don't keep it wrangled and support that weight while putting it on. So even how you transport it was super important, because it has to rest in a way that the weight is kind of taken off of it as much as possible. So I think that was something truly unique to that makeup that, like, we don't usually experience with other makeups that we do, because, it has to be soft enough to where it can live and move and breathe without feeling like a big stiff mask. But, we really pushed the limits, I think, of what we can get away with that.
That's an interesting thing with the way it moves too, is like, it's kind of like the Dick Smith syndrome. Like, he built the Little Big Man makeup to like have these like blinking eyelids and all this stuff. And in the movie, a Little Big Man, he never blinks. It's like they cut out everything where he's blinking. So the performance of Sebastian as well is very muted. so he's like staring a lot and looking around. So he's not like doing all those crazy expressions anyway, which the makeup could have done, So it's one of those things too, where you build something to move and to engineer to work with the actor, and then they shoot it and he's looking in a room like this, not moving his face,
Dave, there's more than just the stairs, right?
Yeah, that was, he wanted to make entertainment, so it had to be. You had to throw a joke in there.
But it's also true. Like the stairs are a bitch.
It's very true. That whole thing, the setup and coming in the morning and setting up and all that did take its toll after a while when you're shooting many days in a row and long days. It was just very arduous. So that was one part. But the other part too, like as Crystal said, gluing this on was very difficult because when you can easily make, glue it, and then all of a sudden the piece can go over the ear. It stretches so easy, you don't even know it's stretching. So just to make sure that we're watching it and gluing it as we go, just to make sure it's in the right spot each time.
What did we do? I can't remember. Did we glue his ear to his head on that one side, or did we cover it with a cat? I
think we tacked it back.
We tacked it.
We did all this stuff. We did all this, like gluing his, pulling things apart and flattening his hair and color, so it was challenging.
Yeah, and he was so great. He didn't move. That's the other thing too. He was like in that chair and not moving at all. Yeah. So he was a great canvas to work with.
Yeah. So Mike, just for the hair lady over here, the softness, going that soft with those pieces, was that for movement? Like, was that why that decision?
Yeah, we developed a material for it that is almost like a foam latex silicone, where it's still super lightweight. It's lighter than the traditional Platsil material that everyone uses. It was a lighter material, and it had this very fast bounce back, almost like foam latex would. But, I don't know. It was a real difficult and heavy thing. There are certain aspects of that makeup that was like 1.5 inches thick. There's no way to avoid it. Sebastian has the super square jaw, and then I had to distort like make it look like one part was caved in and one part was bigger to try to change this whole profile and all of those things. But I think I missed where else we went with this question, but I'm now like going over my head, like what we did here,
But so long ago, it was like,
yeah, I think we filmed this like in 2 years ago or something.
It was like, I think
23,
22.
No, it was 23, right? Was it 23?
I don't think so.
I think so. I think it was 2023. I believe. I can't remember anymore.
It was a while ago.
Hey, the last 5 or 6 years have been like this, like time vacuum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, what did we even do in 2024?
I honestly don't remember it existing.
Exactly.
So, we are constantly learning. So what lessons did we learn throughout this project?
Every job you learn something on. What glue, I know that the hairpiece, I did something similar to the penguin where it was a partial hairpiece. I just knew we didn't have the time to do a full wig, and we luckily made it through the end of the film with the same hairpiece, which was tricky because a lot of it was part mohair. It was like a really kind of a crazy hairpiece that was dangling on towards the end of filming. That was a real challenge too. But I didn't want to put a whole wig on him. It was like July or something. We were filming in New York City, and like Dave said, he's wearing sweaters and long shirts and pants and stuff, and it was just, there was no air conditioning. So it was like, okay, how do I make this easier to do? Like what can, and what do we learn with how to glue something on? I would probably approach the whole makeup differently if I were to do it again. And I think that, I learned a lot about what glue I liked. I learned a lot about, just every job you learn what to do and what not to do. And it's just this constant evolution of materials and shit that didn't work. And like this whole idea didn't work. And, it's like, I think a lot of it is adapting. I think learning to adapt in any kind of makeup condition. And you really have to. It's really like an engineering job. It's not so much, here are the pieces, you stick them on, and this is what it does. I mean, we're constantly trying to invent something new each job, material softnesses and where something could be placed. What could we get away with, and the molding process of the whole thing was like with these elaborate collapsible molds that fell apart. So there were no seams on it because it was such a large sculpture that like wrapped around the head. And I didn't want to do like 9 pieces because it would take an extra hour to do that, so, anyway, that's my learning process. That's how I think constantly, like, how am I improving something each time?
I think another thing that for me I learned is something that I think we have to learn for every job is each other. Like when is Mike gonna need this particular thing and when, and what things does Dave gravitate towards jumping in on? I think for every job, the more that you get in tune with that and you figure out where your place is, how you could best serve the makeup and serve each other, and be ready for each other for whatever you need is just, it's what helps the whole process move along and kind of help the team kind of, that anticipation of each step from each other is kind of what makes it work so well.
Totally.
Yeah, Sebastian would drool a lot too. So
he really is a
that
mess,
makeup,
that guy.
it was what happened was what was going on. I'm like, so I would give him paper towels, and I'm like, and then eventually I'm like, oh, and then I gave him a powder puff. So he would just shove the powder puff up in there. It would get wet. And
because you couldn't quite like meet your lips. With the makeup. You could, but it was like the lip was over here,
Yeah. So it was all kind of disfiguring that. So he would just shove the puff under there. And then the only problem there is that he would eventually start wiping off the lip makeup. So then
we intrinsically tinted the lip.
That's
what we did too.
And he would just like, there would just sometimes be a line because like after a while the piece gets really thin, like right in there. So I would just have to just go in there and then just touch it up just so we don't see that line. So that was the only thing. That was the big maintenance part.
And that's another thing for other makeup artists out there. When you're doing lips and you're doing chins and things like that, it's really important. What I definitely learned on the last 4 or 5 jobs was that if you could tint, talk to your person who's running pieces for you, if you could tint the lips already kind of toned the way you need it to be, that's always an area that's falling apart and, people eating and chipping off paint and stuff. So you don't want to rely only on like a lip color. So what we do is we tint that area in the piece backwards so that it has that coloration already like 90% there. And then what you're doing on top is accenting and doing those things, because that is a constant problem with the makeup and prosthetic makeup is like the lips, the coloration's falling off. And for future also trying to find a way, if a person has a beard shadow or stubble or something, like trying to figure out how to do that in the mold, because that is also a constant thing that is coming off and peeling off and color. All of a sudden you have this like blank spot. So you don't want to deal with that. I mean, we can deal with it, and that's what we do as our job to run in and touch these things up during filming. But, just thinking in advance, like, see if you can tint the lip color, see if you can tint the beard tone slightly so that, in these conditions, sometimes in a tight area or in a small room, you don't have to be the annoying person running in and breaking up the momentum of filming. It's like, hopefully these things, are self-dealt with,
Yeah.
And
what were we going to say, Dave?
Anything that you can that has less maintenance, less touch-ups, less
preparation.
It's just like, key.
Yeah. And as we all know, it takes a team. So did you guys want to give a shout out to those that helped you?
Oh, yeah, totally. Lisa Rink, who is the coordinator of this whole job, managing all the multiple projects we have going on at once. That's a job in itself. Izzy Galindo, who actually made the hairpiece. Pamela Goldhammer, who did the eyelash. And Trent Taft, who was a main mold maker. Olivia and Savannah and Val. And there's so many people in the lab. It really probably like 15 or so people, vital to it. And Sebastian, for enduring all this makeup and to be so easy to work with, because that's really important. as you know, Jamie, you probably had a prima donna in the chair, and they don't want to do anything, and they don't want to sit, and they don't want to do this, and they don't want to do that, and it just makes our lives harder. And you hope that you have a celebrity or star, whoever you're working with, that is cool and gets it and understands. So that's special shout out to Sebastian.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did he get everybody for you guys, Crystal and Dave?
Yeah, I think that was the whole crew.
I think so.
I think so.
Yay. Okay, guys. Well, a massive congratulations again. Enjoy the ride. It's going to be fun. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Last Looks Podcast.
Not cast.